Morning everyone, and welcome back to This Week in F1. And this week Formula 1 was in Austin for the second American race out of the three. And the weekend started off very American with a spelling mistake for Ricciardo's name, and then doing what 99% of the F1 fanbase wish they could do and try to erase Lance Stroll from existence. Unfortunately though, he still does exist and has his ass firmly planted in that Aston seat.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Now, because this weekend was a sprint weekend, it meant qualifying on Friday, and much like most qualifyings this year, it lived up to the hype. This time, it was both Astons out in Q1, not just daddy's money, and Q3 saw a dramatic finish, largely in part due to track limits, which claimed Max Verstappen's final lap and dropped him down to 6th, putting the miserable Monegasque on pole for the race.
It's just that life is pointless and nothing matters, and I'm always tired.
But before we get to the race, we had Sprint Saturday, which of course started out with sprint qualifying. This time, both Astons were out in Q2 rather than Q1, and there was a much more standard Max Verstappen on pole. Then the sprint just kind of went like this.
And the sprint race is underway in Austin. Good reaction time for Max Verstappen, who will close the door on Charles Leclerc, dramatically so. Charles Leclerc didn't want to give it up. He had no choice in the end. They will both get through the first turn, with Verstappen having the lead. Hamilton up to second place, squirming all over the road. The Ferrari was squeezed. They go wheel to wheel into the second. Comes to the final corner on the last lap. The Dutch driver will look up and see the checkered flag first once again in Formula 1. Max Verstappen is the winner. He takes the sprint in Austin.
It was a rather boring sprint race with nothing really happening other than Russell fighting some Frenchmen.
Ooh la la. Au revoir, monsieur.
Merci, monsieur.
Moving on to the actual race, and things got a bit more spicy. But not really spicy. Like the sprint was lemon and herb, and the race was like medium with like a dab of hot. They've brought medium, and you've put like a sprinkling of chili flakes on it. But like the chili flakes came after the meal.
What are you talking to me?
The point is, it was not as boring as the sprint, and when 5 lights went out, Lando jumped Leclerc and stormed out in front, pulling a 3-second gap to Charlie Brown. Hamilton and Verstappen both made their way through the field, and by the time the pit stops came around, it was Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen. Now, the dominant Dutchie was the first one to box onto new mediums, while Lando and Lewis stayed out. And this is what fucked the Brits.
Well, we're fucked.
Firstly, Lando. He stayed out longer than Max, then came into the pit for hards, and then he came into the pits for a second time before Max did, even though Max pitted earlier and was on older mediums and he was on newer hards. What was the point of that pit stop? You've just lost him a bunch of time on a compound that was slower than Max's, and you haven't even used the benefit of that compound, which was keeping him out longer. Which basically means he drove longer on the mediums, lost time, and then didn't even take advantage of the tyre he was pitting onto. What a fucking stupid strategy. Then a Mercedes, it was even worse. Lewis lost 5 seconds by staying out for a fucking eternity, and then on top of that, he had a shite stop. I mean, yes, there was other reasons why Lewis didn't exactly do great in this race, but for the actual race, Mercedes choked hard.
Well, that was fucking dreadful.
And then how did it go at Red Bull? Fucking perfectly. How is this fair? It's bullshit. Red Bull have Adrian Newey designing the car, Max Verstappen driving the car, and fucking Hannah Schmitz with 250 IQ points calling the strategy. How is another team supposed to compete? No, you can't compete. You might as well have all of them down there, sit in the fucking pit lane with their dick in their hands, because that's about as much use as trying to beat Verstappen. You can't! One race this year he's been beaten by another team. There have only been 2 races this season where he has lost without having an issue. Baku and Singapore. And I don't even know what the fuck went on at Singapore. And at Baku, well, yeah, he had a scrap with George Russell, but I don't know how that affects his driving.
Bastard, bitch! Fuck you! Bloody fuck you, bloody!
And it doesn't help that they're a bunch of smug bastards, you know, every time they win the race. Look, it's like fucking pleased with themselves, you know. What? Oh my god, we won? Yeah, no shit, you fucking won. Twat!
Oh my God, I can't believe it.
That is brand new information.
Anyway, when Lewis put on those medium tyres, the race heated up, as he was now on the hunt for Norris and Verstappen. And with Verstappen having brake issues and marriage problems,
No talking at the braking man.
it looked like Lewis could catch him. Hamilton made it past Lando with relative ease, although Norris left it very late for a defensive dive to the inside. He then started his hunt for Verstappen, which ultimately failed for many reasons, and meant we all got to hear that Dutch national anthem once again, with Hamilton and Norris taking the final 2 spots on the podium. It's not funny, but, and now hear me out, it's quite funny. I can't lie. It is quite funny. Every single member of Team LH has been talking about Max Verstappen's illegal rocket ship. And Lewis Hamilton just got disqualified from the race for having an illegal car. There's a bit of irony. It's quite funny. You know, yeah. God, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. Fuck it, lighten up, man. Jesus. Now, I know it's most likely just a setup mistake from only having one practice. However, in the interest of fairness and sporting integrity, hashtag Mercedes cheats. Team LH have put it around for long enough. It's got a fair, you know, equal representation. We're all for equality here on the Sir Beanos channel.
And we'll have equal rights for all. Nobody gets any rights.
Now, while it is funny, do you know what the most annoying thing about this is? I'm not even happy about it. Because usually, the criminally insane getting bad news would be funny. But apparently, if Hamilton beats Perez in the championship, Daniel Ricciardo gets the Mexican seat. So for the next 4 races, I am now part of Team LH. I know I've gone to the dark side, but it's for the greater good.
It's all about the greater good.
The greater good.
How can this be for the greater good?
The greater good.
How can this be for the greater good?
The greater good.
Shut it!
Or it's because I want to have a happy clappy Australian in a good car. Who knows? I mean, it's the second one. But still, you know, the greater good and all that.
The greater good.
Shut it!
Also, Leclerc got disqualified, but his fans are already on the ledge, and I'm not going to be the one to give them the shove.
I'm heavily depressed. Yeah.
So, after all the disqualifications, what does this mean for the championship? Well, Verstappen doesn't need to extend his lead, but he still does, as do Red Bull. Perez pulls a bit of a gap to Hamilton after his disqualification, potentially securing himself a seat for next year.
I'm not fucking leaving!
Norris overtakes the suicidal Monegasque and looks likely to get signs by the end of the season. Lance Stroll finally picks up some points, although really doesn't affect the team too much as McLaren overtake them in the standings. Yuki Tsunoda grabs a bucket full of points with his fastest lap in disqualifications. And Logie Bear, who's finally scored points.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
It means there's only one driver currently racing who hasn't scored any points. And it's the driver who might be in the Red Bull seat next year. I don't know how this sport works, man. Look, it's time for the news, all right? Let's do the news. And we start with Lewis Hamilton. And some of you may remember last race that Mr. Hamilton had a little kerfuffle with his teammate, leading to him walking across the track. Now, for some reason, the FIA are reopening the investigation into this because he is apparently a role model within the sport. What kind of bullshit is this? Multiple drivers have walked across the track without punishment. This is stupid. Just because he chooses to be a walking Met Gala in his spare time doesn't mean he should get harsher penalties. But the FIA are an organisation of walking, talking morons, so who the fuck knows what's going to happen.
I may not have a brain, gentlemen.
Moving on to more positive news, and Andretti are going to start wind tunnel testing an F1 car built to the 2023 regulations. In other positive news, Bianca Bustamante has joined the McLaren driver development program, making her the first female driver to do so. So congratulations to her. Lawrence Stroll has said that in 9 races, Lawrence Stroll has lost out on points because of bad luck. The only bad luck he had for most of those races is he was the first one to make it to the fucking egg. bellend. And finally, Jacques Villeneuve has said that Daniel Ricciardo needs to stop smiling in commercials because middle-aged misery or something. I don't know. What the fuck? Who the fuck cares? In a bit.